Alright, Ball episode 2. Today we're going to talk about Milan and Juve. Okay? We had the game on Wednesday, and I'm not even going to fucking discuss that. It was a depleted team. We would have beaten the full squad, no doubt in my mind. I'm going to talk about the game behind the game, right? The recruitment side. Basically, I just see two teams that are going in completely different directions. One in Juve, who are just abandoning everything that made them so great, and Milan are adopting this new philosophy, right? So I'm going to talk about the Milan philosophy first. How we got to first place, the best team in the league by far. I don't even care about the loss, right? How do we get to this point? So I see 4 points. First of all, buy young. That's the main thing we've changed, is buy young players. And everybody says that, but how many people are actually willing to stick by it and be patient when those young guys suck? Because they will suck. That's what young players do. They are awful, all right? You're not buying them for their immediate production. You're buying them for what they're going to be later on, okay? That's the first point. Second of all, don't be rigid, okay? Don't be an idiot. Yes, you want to buy young, but that doesn't mean there aren't exceptions. There has to be exceptions because you can't win anything. Forget winning anything. You can't be good without any veteran leadership and without having a diversified squad. You can't have all just young players. It doesn't work like that, okay? You have to have Zlatan. You have to have Kjaer. You have to have Rebic, guys who have seen things and done things, all right? You have to have those guys. But the main caveat of what Milan's done is make sure when you make those veteran signings, make sure they're cheap. Because when young guys flop, you can recuperate the money. Okay, when old guys flop, there's no way you can ever make up that money. And you could see that actually in the summer of 2017-18, Milan did 200 million spent basically on a lot of players. And even actually in 2017-18 and 18-19, you could see a whole lot of money spent on a whole lot of players. And the only money that was recuperated, the only players that recuperated a decent amount of money were all young. So Andre Silva ends up becoming Rebic in the swap with Eintracht Frankfurt, right? What's his name? Paqueta becomes 20 million to Lyon. Piontek becomes 25 million to Hertha. The two other players, any of these players in those 2 summers that actually succeeded, also young. Hakan was 23 when he joined, and Kessie was 20 when he joined, and both of those guys are superstars now for the team. 1920 and 2020 and 2021 forward, you see actually the changes in the philosophy, right? When Maldini comes in and he takes charge and he starts adopting. First of all, and I think this is one of the most underlooked things that what he's done is utilize loans. Okay, you need loan players because every year there are players who aren't good enough for the top teams that they are for, or they've flopped, or some circumstances happened where those guys can't play for the top teams that they're at, and they're forced to go on loan. The young players, they usually get sent out to these awful teams where they're clearly too good for those teams, right? And they end up just shining, and you're like, man, what a missed opportunity. If that guy had gone and maybe he would have been a fringe starter, maybe you could have gotten something out of him, aka Brahim Diaz this year, right? He could have easily gone to like Huesca or some team like that, and he would have starred for them, and he would have been excellent for them. And all of these teams would have been like, man, if we had gotten that guy, he could have easily been our backup or our fringe starter, which is exactly what he is for Milan right now, right? So utilize loans as the first place, and the older players you can loan also can be experienced and can be you can benefit from those guys like Rebic and Kjaer, who both initially were loans, right? So basically from that you can see there's clearly a change in recruitment, right? Immediately you see 1920 and 2021, you see Leao, Theo, Benasser, Salamakers, Tonali, and Haug, all 21 and under, right? All now starters or very important to the rotation players, okay? And immediately you see a change. Immediately the average age just goes down. And when you get those, and when you go for those experienced guys like Zlatan, like Rebic, like Kjaer, all of whom are very important to the team, you can get all 3 of those guys. Because you've supplemented the squad with so much youth, you can get all 3 of those guys for a combined 3.5 million. Okay? 3.5 million. That's insane, dude. That's 3 top starters. And 2 of them are superstars in Zlatan and Kjaer for our team. 2 of them for 3.5 million combined. Okay? So that shows me that clearly Milan have adopted a better idea, all right? And the fourth point, and I think one of the most important ones, is don't be stubborn, okay? There is no There's a philosophy. There's an overarching philosophy, but there is no blueprint where I have to go in exactly this direction. Nothing changes. I am plowing through ahead with whatever decision I make. You can't do that. Stability is important, but stubbornness is stupid. Okay? So, in the process, Milan made mistakes. Okay? Hiring Gianpaolo, a mistake. All right? And Maldini acknowledged that mistake and didn't think, oh man, we just have to stick with this guy. We have to give him better players. We have to do this. No, when it's not working, it's not working. And you have to identify who the problem is. And the problem was clearly Gianpaolo, right? And you just need to get rid of that guy. So for other teams, like Arsenal, and for other managers, like Arteta, you have to get rid of those guys, okay? Even when you have the right philosophy and the right overarching idea, you can still make mistakes. It's your job, though, to acknowledge those mistakes and correct them, right? And then, once you do correct them, even if you stumble into it the way Milan did with Stefano Pioli, right? We hired him as an interim. Everybody's like, Ralf Rangnick is going to be the guy at the end of the season. He's going to come in. He's not going to be just manager. He's going to be manager and sporting director. He's going to take two jobs, right? But a smart ownership realizes when you struck gold, don't go to another well, all right? When you struck water, gold, I don't even fucking know why I said that. When you hit water, don't go to another well. That's your guy. Let's just go. You had Pioli, he struck gold. Let's do it. Let's run it back. Let's give Maldini more opportunity to prove himself. Let's give Pioli the complete control of this team. Let's do it. And that's what they did, and that's how we got good. Okay? If we had hired Rangnick, who has already come out in the media and said, oh, I don't necessarily agree with them signing Kier and Zlatan, think about how much worse this goddamn squad would be if we only went for young players and we missed out on those two superstars. Like, it would have been awful. Just complete disaster, and thank God we didn't hire that guy. All right, that's the Milan part, right? Four points of philosophy that I think you can apply to any team, and I keep saying, I've been saying this since last summer. I keep saying, man, Arsenal, you need to do this. You need to do this. The deadweight old players need to go. Young players only. Cheap older players if need be. Get rid of Arteta. You made a mistake. Just own up to it and get rid of him. Alright, so with the Juve part. Basically with Juve, I just see a team that won so much for so long, doing it one way. And then all of a sudden, year on year, these little changes started to creep in. These weird changes that other clubs make these mistakes all the time, but not them, man. Every year we would be like, man, every year they would make 3 signings. You'd be like, oh, God, not this again. How did they do it? How did they get this signing for this price? Or how did they get this player specifically? How did they do it? They're going to win again. We can't stop them. We can't beat these guys. It's unbelievable. Every year they had 3 signings like that. And then just year on year, it just got worse. A little bit worse. And now it's just recruitment is just awful, man. I can't even believe how bad it is. So let's go back all the way to start. 13-14, right? They get Tevez for 10 million. Okay? Incredible signing. Like, I don't even think people understand. This guy was the top scorer, I think, twice. Incredible signing. He just set the tone for them for this, like, almost decade of excellence. Then they signed... So 14-15, they signed, for example, like guys like Morata for 22 million. At the time, a very good player. He wasn't a starter fully, but he contributed a lot in Europe and stuff like that. But 15-16, they go and sign. They sign Dybala, they sign Alexandro, they sign Cuadrado, they sign Mandzukic, and they sign Khedira. 5 guys, 5 basically home runs, right, that they hit on. And immediately... they just go to another level. Like no way anybody can beat these guys. And Roma and Napoli, like those guys are the difference between us having a Roma and Napoli. Those kind of signings are the difference between us having a Roma and Napoli title winners and Juve continuing 9 years in a row. Because Roma and Napoli at that time were incredible. And it took that kind of insane recruitment from Juventus to continue going. 16-17, they go. They just break the back of the league. Just unbelievable, these signings. They go Higuain from Napoli. They go Pjanic from Roma. They go Dani Alves free. And they go Ben Atiyah on loan from Bayern. Just superstar signings. Like, unbelievable signings. It took them to another level. They took them to the Champions League final, which, thank God, they lost hilariously. 4-1. but it showed that they were in business. They were actually going to try not just to dominate the league, because they were already doing that, but they were going to try to go in Europe. Then 17-18, they start making a couple dumb signings. It just happens. The dumb element just starts creeping in. Okay, so 17-18, you start getting. So you still have the good signing. You still have Matuidi, great signing. Szczesny, one of the best goalkeepers in the entire league, great signing. For 14 million, almost nothing. Bentancur, great signing. I like him. A lot of people are like indifferent. He's just a guy. I like him. I think he's a good player. But then you also have bad signings. You have Bernardeschi and you have Douglas Costa for 80 million combined for God knows what reason. Like, no one, even at the time, this is not hindsight. No one can say, oh, you're just saying this because now you know they flopped. No. Everybody, even at the time, were like, how could you spend 80 million? 80 million, they basically tried to change their team, to make it into something it's not. And it was never that. It was never a team that was going to go wide and was going to beat you on the wings. It was never that. It was always a midfield-run team. A midfield-oriented team. And they just tried to change things, and it just never worked. Especially, and you're going to spend 80 million on two guys who aren't even good, man. Everyone knew they weren't good, even at the time. Then you go a year later, 18-19. You go, okay, Ronaldo, 120 million, sorry. 120 million. Some people I say, oh, he didn't win when he was brought to win, all that kind of stuff. I personally don't subscribe to that. If you get an opportunity to sign somebody like Ronaldo, you sign them. You don't ask questions. You fucking sign them, and then you deal with the consequences later. That's you need. You just have to do it. They signed Cancelo for 40 million, who had just had a great spell at Inter, which is actually a good signing. But then they fuck it up a year later. But let's get on 1 second for that. Bonucci, they bring him back from Milan for 35 million. No one, I just don't, I never understood that one. They basically tried to do that, we're putting everything in the Champions League basket, but Bonucci's time at the club was just over. There was no point. You know what I'm saying? You're already clearly good without him. You could win without him. So I don't really understand why they had to bring him back. And then a weird trend started happening with Emre Can signing for free. They gave him a lot of money, huge wages, which they started doing later on to these other guys. I'll mention them in a second. They sign these free agents, they give them huge wages, and they're just guys who are like, why are you signing this guy? This never made any sense. It's not like Khedira or Matuidi where you're like, man, he fits the philosophy, he fits the way they want to play, he fits everything. They just started guys who never fit. 19-20, they go 85 million for De Ligt, who I think is a very good player, but Jesus, 85 million is insane. It's just an obscene amount. They fuck up the good Cancelo signing, who was good for them, but they fucked that up by swapping him with Danilo for Danilo plus 20 million for no reason. I never understood that one. I don't think anyone does. They signed Demiral for 18 million, which shows you that they can still make good signings. So clearly somebody at that club still has a brain to identify that guy and sign him, because he's a very good player and for such a cheap price. So clearly they can still make signings like this. So why aren't they is the question. Why aren't they doing it more consistently? And then Ramsey and Rabiot, both for free, both for obscene wage packets, just unbelievably mediocre signings, just things you would never associate with Juve. Like the Eriksen signing for Inter is basically those two signings. It's Ramsey and Rabiot, right? And you would associate those kind of signings with everybody else in the league. Napoli could make that mistake. Inter could make that mistake. But Juve for 5 years, for basically from 13-14 to 17-18, basically 5 years, thereabouts, they would have never made those mistakes. You're like, man, no way. Everybody else could make those mistakes, but not them. They're always well run. They would never make stuff like that. Then 2020 and 2021. The perfect, just the creme de la creme, the cherry on top, perfect. Just disaster of a transfer window that just encapsulates the whole thing. There's the obvious Arthur and Pjanic swap, which somehow, basically, on paper, they paid 72 million for Arthur for God knows what reason. No one understands. It just doesn't make any sense. You get Morata on loan with an option of 40 million, which I pray to God that they buy. Please activate that. And every single fan for both Atleti, for both Chelsea, apparently doesn't know what the hell they're talking about, because these guys online will tell you, oh man, Morata, he's a game changer. He's a baller. He's good. He has 4 league goals, and not a single one of them are against the top half team. It's just inexplicable how anyone can defend this guy. It's not even like he's young. He's ass and he's old, and we've seen this goddamn guy for years, and he's always been the same player. All right? He can be your best striker if you want to finish 4th and never ever win a big game. He could be your guy. Okay? That's what his level is. They signed McKinney for a loan of 20 million. I don't like him as a player, but at the very least it wasn't that much money. They signed Kulusevski, another good signing. I really rate Kulusevski, and I really rate the signing. So at least they're still doing that. But then I just see one signing above all that just it really exemplifies the whole thing, the Chiesa signing. And I'm going to say this right now. I don't give a fuck that he scored twice against us and we lost. I really don't care. Okay? He has 2 good games this season, and God bless him, he had one of them against us. So kudos to him, congratulations, whatever. You won a game against a depleted team where Calabria was in midfield. Cool. You're so good for that. But he's a terrible player. I don't care what anyone says. Okay? He has all the talent in the world, but he's as dumb as a fucking doorknob. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable how stupid that guy is. It's unbelievable how often, how consistently you can rely on him to make the wrong decision. It's almost impressive. It's a talent in its own. When he needs to cross, he shoots. When he needs to shoot, he crosses. It's just unbelievable. And then, the Chiesa signing, man. It's literally it's so bad. I just could not believe. It was like the breaking point where I was like, man, what the hell are they doing? And I said all this, by the way, in the summer. You can't even claim that, I've waited for the draws or whatever. No. I said this all at the time. I said they were done when they made these kind of signings. The Chiesa signing is basically like a guy coming and telling you, listen, right here, there's a landmine, okay? And if you step on this landmine, it's going to explode. Okay, so every single day for 5 years, you go to work and you come back and you avoid the landmine. You go right around the landmine, you go to work. You come back from work, you go right around the landmine, you go home. Every single day for 5 years, until one day you just decide, you just go maybe there isn't a landmine here. I don't know. Maybe that guy was lying. And you step on it and it explodes and you die. That's the Chiesa signing. Everybody for however many years, everybody agreed. Hey, listen, man, incredible talent. He has the skill, he has the ability, but he's fucking stupid. So don't sign him. Everybody agreed. No one did it. Even as many of those big rumors as there were, even when he was devalued, every big team that allegedly was interested, everybody just moved away. Like, nah, man, I don't need that. I don't need that action. Fuck that. I don't need this guy who needs the ball to be effective, but also consistently will make the wrong decision when you're on the ball. No one needs that. And just in there's no way. You cannot convince me one bit that 15, 16 Juventus or any of those years, that Juve, that management does that move. No way. No way. You can't convince me of it. And I don't even know what the reasoning is for all these. My best guess, I think, is they've basically let their outside perception leak into, seep into their culture, and it's got into their recruitment process. When Allegri was there, it started towards the end that people kept on going he plays ugly football, we're tired of this football, nonsense, all that stuff. It's dude, you're winning. Let it go. Play. He signed the players based on what he wants them to do, and they always did that, always delivered. And I just can't imagine. I mean, no one complained under Conte. He played ugly ass football too. So I feel like they let outside perception get into their decision making, and they fire Allegri and they hire Sarri, which every single person knew was gonna fail. Just the stupidest hire ever. The most you go from immediately from one spectrum of football all the way to the other, right? In one hire, and it just did not make any sense, and clearly it failed, and they fire him later, a year later, and then they hire Pirlo for God knows what reason. I don't see what he's offering, but I know right now, I don't know, maybe he has the potential, he can become a good coach, but I know at this moment he isn't one, right? At this moment, their midfield lacks any sort of creativity most of the time. On a good day, you can maybe have Kulusevski, or you can maybe have Dybala involved inside. You can maybe have some creativity, but generally, it's guys like McKinney and Bentancur and Rabiot who just can't pass the ball if their life depended on it. And Arthur, the 72 million man, is regularly sitting on the bench for no goddamn reason. So, I think their time is over. I don't care if they won. Cool, they get 3 points, but ultimately I think their time is over. It's between us and Inter for the title, I think. I think consistently in big games they're going to struggle if they play full 11s. And I think the dynasty's over. And listen, they still have enough. They still make more money than everybody in the league, and they still have, if they wanted to fix up, you can see from like the Demiral and Kulusevski signings, they still know how to identify talent. I can't understand why they're not going more into those kinds of signings as opposed to the stuff that they're coming up with, like Arthur and McKinney and Chiesa, obviously. I can't understand it.